I've told this story a bunch of times, but I'm going to tell it again. I still remember the moment when Josie came to my desk in 2017, and my desk was a lot different then. It was in the back corner of the shop. So coming to my desk basically just meant like walking through the shop and being like, hey, Jen, we need to do some work in the neighborhood. We had secured this land. We knew we were going to be here. And Josie immediately, her brain always turns to community and how to serve community, and is very dedicated to our mission. So why don't you tell me what you remember about that moment, since I'm the one who keeps talking about it.
Oh no, I mean, I definitely remember a similar moment, and we, at that point, we had we had secured funding for our community maker days through the William Penn Foundation, and then a discovery grant through Pew Center for Arts and Culture.
Arts and Heritage. Yep, I know. We just say Pew.
And so it became really important to figure out these projects that are going to run parallel, how to sort of bring them together and work on both of them together. And we actually brought on a shared team for community organizing team for those two projects. So this was the project started in the summer of 2018.
Yeah, so we had to really start early by thinking through writing those grants for the projects. We knew that it was really essential for us to figure out a respectful way to join a new neighborhood. We knew how important the fact that we were in Old City for almost 50 years, people really associate the Clay Studio with that location. And we have often talked, and Josie works really hard, as does everyone else, to make sure that our programming is as accessible as possible, but we were excited that this is a more residential neighborhood. There are families living here in the Old City location. I will just tell you, Josie would drive SEPTA tokens to people's houses to get their kids to come to programs, and they still didn't always come because it's still hard. You have to take the day off or do whatever because it's a big trip. So we wanted to make sure that we were going to take advantage of that as much as possible to open our doors to as many people as we could. So that's really when you conceived of that Maker Day project. So I would love to hear you talk about that project.
So Maker Days started out as, how do we all come together with ceramics? So much of it is around food, and there had been a community dinner in South Kensington. And so really the idea came out of a project where we would go to different festivals and engage with the community to make plates for this dinner. And I really appreciate the William Penn and thinking partners with us, and they really encouraged us to go beyond the South Kensington neighborhood and really reach into greater Kensington. So we ended up having 8 workshops where we made 500 plates with the community, and each community member would make a plate that then we would fire, and then a different community member would decorate the plates with decals that were inspired by the different either festivals we were participating in or neighborhoods. And Hope Rovelto and Hiroe Hanazono were the lead artists for the project. And then it ended up culminating in a dinner that we put together ourselves in the end. And it was this beautiful dinner where people got to come and get their plates and eat together and make artwork together and have lots of amazing music. So it culminated in this really beautiful moment where we were on this land before there was a building here to sort of celebrate the move.
Yeah, and just to emphasize the importance of this thing that Josie glosses over. The people who had made a plate, for instance, at a festival in July, came to this dinner in September, and the education staff is so amazing. They were able to match them up with the plate that they had made 2 months earlier, and that person got to eat dinner from their plate and then take it home with them. So it takes so much organization, and I think that's one of the great things about the education staff here, having such great processes and a great team. So the conversation that we were having was also how do we connect what we do in the gallery with this amazing team that knows exactly how to go into a festival and do all this wonderful programming. We wanted to make sure that people also felt comfortable and welcome coming into the gallery space and knowing that was their space too. So then we came up with Clay and Conversations, which happened at the same time, but instead of reaching 500 people, we had 40 people, 500 people over this period of time. We had 40 people that met with us 4 times. We made a project, and then we had a conversation. And the lead artists on that project were Jenny Shanker and Roberto Lugo. And what Josie and I have talked about, both realizing on the second time we all got together, having this really strong feeling, and I want you to talk about that a little bit.
Well, I just have a very distinct memory, maybe Nitsa remembers this too, of seeing the same group of people over the summer, and that second meeting, and a woman named Wanda, who her English wasn't great, my Spanish is not great, but we just seeing our smiling faces and that sort of connection that we all shared, and just really feeling very deeply like, oh, this is just the beginning of working together, and we have to be very intentional about how we keep those connections moving forward. And it feels like that again, now that we're here. So,
yeah.
Because it took a little longer than we all thought. So.
Yes, it did. And that was before the pandemic, so we could hug those people when we saw them for the first time, which was great. So we often want to give credit to all of our amazing funders, and the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage sat with us when we were talking to them about these ideas, and I will be the first to admit that they said, well, what are you giving to the council members and council members who are here with us? We were like, oh, we're going to do free programming with them. Isn't that great? And they were like, well, are you going to pay them for your time? Are you going to give them food? What about childcare? And really, often having done things on a shoestring, this was not something we were ever able to do. And of course, we would have wanted to. So we were so thrilled that Pew was willing to give us enough funding to do that. That was a major way that I think we really started to hopefully build trust. And what Josie just said about it took longer than expected was another part of this thing that we realized at the end of the summer. Like, wow, this was amazing. We need to keep it going. We are so honored that people have trusted us through the summer, and we've built real relationships with them. We can't just be like, okay, see you in 2 years when the building opens, which turned into 4 years. So we had continued meetings, and
right.
With food and conversation, and
that's really how the idea of the council came about. Right. Was having a few interim meetings while the building was happening, and then once we knew, okay, we're getting closer by a couple of years to it happening, to really bring their voices into the project for the exhibition.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have talked long enough.
Yes.
We want to ask questions, and
or they're going to introduce themselves.
Oh yeah, of course. So the 3 people you see in front of you were people who we could depend on to be at the meetings, and we're so happy that they continued with us. We're going to ask Nitsa to go first and introduce herself, and I'm going to really work hard to make sure that the images, or is that right? Or is Melita going first? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sorry. Melita's going first, and then Nitsa, and then Cesar. So I'm going to try to make it so that the images are correct while you're talking. Sorry.
Okay. We're all there. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Melissa Reynoso. I am a teacher. That's my job. That's what I make a living. But I did not go to school to be a teacher. It just happened. As Jennifer so beautifully spoke earlier, I'm not going to repeat what I am. You can read it. You can all read it. We were part of this, and we were very honored. So I serve on the board of the Norris Core Neighborhood Project, which you're going to see pictures at some point of the gardens and all that. And the connections, the 6 degrees of separation that we play, it's more like 2 degrees of separation at this table, because I am on the board of an organization that's been around for 50 years, and I have not been around for 50 years myself. And it was as a result that place exists because of Nitsa's mother, which is all connected. And I'm just here to try to steward this place as a garden. And now, in 2022, this space, this garden has been, and Cesar connects to this as well, You know, gentrification is happening, is coming, and it's coming fast to our neighborhood. We are literally 3 blocks from here. So all these things come into play when we have to sit here and like, what am I going to talk about? What do I want people to take? And there's so much you want to talk about. So I just wanted to say my name and how I store this board, and then hopefully we'll come back around and we'll talk more, because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
All yours, sir. That's my space.
Next. Hello, my name is Vitsa. I am a community resident. I live only 6 blocks away. My experience with the Clay Studio began in 1993 when I walked in through the doors on 2nd Street. I didn't know about the Clay Studio. I actually saw a commercial on TV about the Clay Studio, and I said, what? There's a Clay Studio in Philadelphia? I must go. And I signed up. I signed up on Tuesday nights with my mother, and I got drawn to the pottery wheel, and that's what I love creating. How I love creating my work is on the pottery wheel, and I also enjoy teaching beginners to throw on the pottery wheel. My current position here is I help run the Claymobile program. The Claymobile program is very important to me because I was introduced to clay by my 7th grade art teacher by mistake. So in essence, I say that was my first Claymobile experience because it wasn't with the rest of our students. It was just a few of us that he selected, and I just happened to be one of them. So I know the importance of clay, introducing clay to young people because they'll pick it up later on as adults, just the same way I did. I am a proud product of the Clay Studio. I now teach for the Clay Studio. I teach the Sunday beginners class. So if you are a beginner and you want to learn how to throw on a pottery wheel, sign up for Sundays. I also teach in West Philly at Black Hound, and I recently got offered a position at Temple to teach. So I thank the Clay Studio. Because of the Clay Studio, I am here. I am a potter, and I'm a teaching artist.
And these are the pieces that you'll see downstairs. And when you go down, please read the descriptions. It's very important. Cesar.
My name is Cesar Riveros Herrera. I'm originally from Mexico, Veracruz. So I happen to be born in a place like well known precisely for the clay art that is happening for centuries, or we say millennials. I'm lucky enough to be there, and when I was growing up, my father took us to the field to grow corn. I said lucky, but it was hard. It's really hard to do that. But the nice part was that as we worked on the soil, I started finding little pieces of pottery. Of course, my parents didn't know anything about it, and I just started collecting those pieces. Later on, I find out that they belong to civilizations that were there before Hernan Cortés came to destroy the world. Because at the time there was no record of any other like colonial cities or towns. So basically everything, where you walk on every field, you're gonna find pottery that is really like that old. And for me, it was striking to know that those colors were preserved. But that kind of like took me back to my early memories. I always say this, that when I was a child, my earliest memory ever is playing with clay. Back there is not like a truck coming to pick up your trash, so there is like people make holes, big holes, to burn the trash, but all the things that take it out is pure clay, because that's the soil in Veracruz. So me and my brother started playing, creating. This was my that basically opened my world to the art, like being able to create things. And then like I guess like 6 years old, I wanted to put color, and I started taking the white line from construction, and putting it smashing bricks to get the red color. And I was very naive that I thought that getting the plants, I'm gonna get the green color. But those memories like marked my life, right? So then I come to Philadelphia, and I start doing murals. And it's beautiful because through the murals I tell the story of other people. I go and listen and create, and I do a collage of these other people's stories. But when it's about three-dimensional pieces, when it's about clay, when it's about sculpture, when it's about cement, when it's about growing plants, when it's about creating the temazcal, when it's about to do like 8 feet concrete pieces. That's my story. That's my persona. That's the story of me, my kids, my family, my life in Mexico, compacted into these three-dimensional pieces. So either cardboard like that, or cement or clay, it gives me access to a new world of expression. Because in painting, I just use the brush or spray can. I never touch the actual wall. But with clay, with sand, with cement, I actually become part of that. I basically put myself into the piece physically, biologically. Part of me gets into the piece. And part of that piece gets into me at this molecular level. So we interact with that. That's why I'm so grateful that I was called to the conference. Be part of that and part of the decision, and so many things that happen here, and I guess we can talk about that later. So.
Oh, that's a great, thank you, all three of you, and thank you, Cesar, for that great segue into our first question, which is, what has being on the council meant to you? And sort of, if you want to think about the same question, the next question while you're answering that, what do you think it will mean going forward, as we said that our dedication is to continue this process? So,
So being on the council has been interesting because it goes back to what the clay studio is. It's kind of well connected, right? When I heard, I don't know how I heard, that the clay studio is coming to Kensington, which, by the way, I didn't know I lived in South Kensington until the clay studio told me that I lived in South Kensington. This was Kensington. So I'm like, oh, great. And I know the clay studio because I have taken, I took one class at the old city studio. I absolutely hate the wheel with all my heart. Nita says she's going to change that forever. So I know the clay studio, like, and I'm going to be honest, I'm like, oh, great, more white people coming together, and great, because that's the perception, right? Like, here we go, take the spaces, and it's not great. We are kind of tired of that. It's I'm from Dominican Republic, born and raised, and that's where Columbus came first. Like, yay, the colonization and the stuff continues, but so I was incredibly like, okay, here we go. Let's try it again. And then Nitsa is kind of my neighbor. We live in the same neighborhood, but we really never quite met until I came here. And that's kind of what we are now. So when I heard you guys were coming, and then it was very interesting. But then you guys did it right. Because the first thing, the biggest difference was you were in fact did really well, compensated us for our time. That never happens. As Black and brown people, we're so used to our opinion being taken. If we're lucky, sometimes they ask us for it. But it's like, wait, you paid me and you're giving me training, and you value my time and my effort. And, oh, okay, I like this. I like this kind of equal thing that's happening. This is kind of cool. And then you did it again. And then you did it again. And then you did it again. And it's like, by the fifth time, I stopped counting. Like, okay, I can do this. This is kind of cool. So, and then, because that was not enough, our trainings were led by Black and brown people, which matters to me. Roberto Lugo meets the Edis. This is important. Oh, this is different. This is really different. Even though both Jennifer and Josie look like garden variety white people, but they're not. Like, oh, this is really cool. Let's do more of this. And it evolved into this crazy thing where we continue to meet, and then the pandemic hit. And then I felt like, this is it, we're done. The love fest is over. And it wasn't. It actually deepened, and we started dating online, basically. And it was amazing, and it was great. And so it means so much, and I probably am not answering any of the questions, but it meant so much because it was an intentional, deliberate. We want you here. We want to know what you want. It is not the founder's question. It is not the Pew Foundation wants to know how many brown people you have on your board or how many of the brown are gay, so we can check more boxes. Like, no, this is real. This is real. And what solidified the relationship for me was when Maria, and I would say this forever, the level of detail and organization that it took and it has taken for the last 3 years is bar none. I've been a teacher for 25 years. I've never met anything so precise. Like this lady would drive to Kensington, dropping off clay so we can do it online. And what I had 2 cameras, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but it was great. And I have 3 things actually in my house. So that's what the council meant, not only through y'all, but through the people. Cesar's mural is something I see every day. Never met Cesar until the council. So that's what it meant. Like, oh, these are my neighbors. Let's just hang out and have the clay studio pay for our meals. That's fantastic. So this is great. And now you're here. And that's question number 3 that I'm not going to answer. But now you're here, and we're going to hold it to it. So and I probably didn't answer any of the questions you asked, but that's all I have.
Yeah,
That's
amazing. Thank you. It's this garden variety white person will say I'm compelling with anyone knows Yiddish. Just to be able to be part of a group with you and all of you together and have you have good feelings. It's really powerful. Thank you, Christine.
Can I go? My perspective is twofold because not only am I a community resident, but I'm also an employee. So I've seen both sides. I have appreciated how the Clay Studio, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my mother, because my mother is also part of the council, but she's busy in the garden. But she will say, because she said it at the opening, how important it was for the Clay Studio to introduce themselves to the neighborhood, not just come and say, we're here, we're an institution, now you have to work around us. The Clay Studio came about it the other way. And they came to the neighborhood and they tailored themselves. They, had Spanish interpreters. They had, people who spoke Middle Eastern because we have a mosque that's around the corner. So I clearly remember going to all of the activities and just tailoring it to the community and to the residents and making them feel important and making them feel welcome. So I will say, as a resident, I totally appreciate what the Clay Studio has done. And as an employee, just the back end, all of the work that it takes, for Maria to set up all of those emails, all of the pre-packaged little clay kits that we made for us to create during the Zoom meetings. So I saw all of the work, all of the meetings between Jay-Z and Josie and Jennifer. So as a staff person, I have seen all of the work that it took to create the council and to be sincere, to the community, and to be real. I don't think that, the Clay Studio, we're not fake. We are who we are. Our faces are our faces. And if you ask me a question, my answer will be the same as if you ask Josie the question. Our answers are always the same, and we're just all one. So I totally appreciate, again, how the Clay Studio introduced themselves to the community and how they're embracing. And for the future, there's a lot of new developments. So we have work to do because we have those neighbors to include, into our community and into this building. My excitement, and I couldn't wait to that last question, is the 4th floor. Because the Clay Studio has never offered youth programming, after-school programming. I helped run the Claymobile program, and I can tell you, I was just at a site last night at Spruance School. And what did the children ask for? They asked for the pottery wheel. They always ask for the pottery wheel. So come September, the 4th floor classroom will be full of hopefully a lot of youth from this neighborhood that could not have access to our 2nd Street building. Well, now hopefully will walk, from Moffett, from Hunter, from the mosque, and have after-school programming. So that is what has me excited about the new Clay Studio and its space.
Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah, for me, I was so glad that I was called to be part of this council because, in a way, you want to embrace the idea that people in power really care about listening to the people who doesn't have the power. So coming to the neighborhood and not just taking the land because you have the means to do it, but coming with the promise that you are not gonna be one more of those doing that. Coming with the promise that you really are here to listen to the people who live here already. Because it's so easy with the power. It's so easy to displace people. And you got your you got your you got the people who have the means to come and take like these classes, pay for whatever is offered here, who is the one of the highest quality on the country, not to say in the world. But the fact that you came and promised that you want to hear how this can be built in the beginning, that you take in consideration, or I want to believe that that's very genuine, that all the voices of the council were heard, because I can see that reflected now that I come to the place. Even if, I mean, I don't see it probably right now, but somewhere, somehow, even like the place where you're gonna sit, it was decided by the council. The things were arranged, even colors, things like that. So you can see some of that community public involvement. So it's not just the talk, but also it's the action. Like coming, I'm not gonna elaborate more on what they say because we all experience that. But for me, coming to this meeting, and actually, I'm very grateful because one of those meetings was on 2017. Um, my wife was still around, and we had to spend time with the kids playing in this community base. So we were here, and we was able to connect with other people, and I think that's what's gonna happen here. Um, Moving forward, I would say we need more money from the state. We need this place to be subsidized more. I think we want to fill all these room and spaces from the people who doesn't have the ways to do it. Because now you open this Pandora box, you expose this to the people. People's gonna come on crowds, and we want to own it. So you have to deal with that, and I think there is way for the state, for big funders to making it a lot bigger than that. There's so much thing that we can do here. I say we.
Yeah, together. Um, I would love to ask if what stayed with you most from the process. I mean, you've all kind of answered that question a bit, but was there a particular activity that you remember or conversation? I might prompt Melissa to talk about when we were discussing translating versus creating a different title.
So there's kind of two questions in there, like what stay and what stay and what did I enjoy. Well, I didn't know there were so many ways to say place and matter in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
There are 23 countries, and I think there are 29 ways to say place and matter. Is matter a verb? Is matter a noun? Is it matter like Cornel West says matter, or is it matter like the clay? What matter? Which matter? I'm like, oh my God. Going around and around. This is on Zoom, by the way. So, and Mari and Ana and I are native speakers of Spanish, so we went back and forth. En Colombia decimos tal cosa, pero en Venezuela decimos tal cosa, pero en Puerto Rico decimos tal cosa, pero en Santo Domingo decimos. I'm like, oh my God, why is it so difficult? It's just literally 3 words, making place matter. But it really drove the point that we're all different and we appreciate things differently. I'm also a language teacher, so I went in big time because language has to be precise, right? Precision of language is precision of thought, and this matters, and you have to be clear. And if I'm from Venezuela and I see, I don't even know where we landed because there were so many, but
Oh, and it's not on there. That's great. Good job, Jen.
there's so many. It has to mean, like Nita say, at the Clay Studio, it's one voice. Nita says it, Josie says it, Jennifer says it, the same thing. Making Place Matter, she say the same thing in Spanish. And again, don't really remember where we landed, but I'm sure it's great. So that was an insane amount of mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
But it was great. And so I enjoyed that a ton. So that stayed big time. The close second to that was learning, this was really hard, as you can probably tell in 3 seconds. Learning to relinquish the power. I'm a classroom teacher. And if you are a classroom teacher, or if you're in charge of any group of people, especially middle schoolers, power is something you hold on to it for your life. You don't relinquish it, you don't let it go, you hold on to it because it's a safety issue. Children will get hurt if you release, right? So to have to let go and let the other members and Josie and Maria trust the process. Like Brown said during the Sixers, like trust the process. Like sometimes the process doesn't work. Or like, Said said this morning, you envision this thing, but you don't get to see it until it's done. And maybe when it's done, it's not what you thought it was. Like, so that was really difficult to do. But once I did it, like, you know what, this is not my classroom, and these are not my students. They have their own teachers and their own parents. They can handle. That's when it hit me, like, this is such a rich and amazing opportunity. Like, I don't have to do this. I get to do this. And that was really powerful, like getting to that point. Took forever. Took a pandemic for that to happen, but it was amazing. It still is. I mean, we're still here, right? So that's what I enjoy, and that's what I stay with me the most.
And it's formar tierra y lugar.
Formar tierra y lugar. Which, if we go back, it is not making place matter, but we're not going to talk about it anymore. It's done.
We decided.
It totally is.
No, but we decided intentionally. Because making place matter in English has so many different layers. That's why we picked that title, right? Because it's complex. We had to think of a similarly complex phrase that meant the same ideas, and that's when we realized we couldn't translate. And at that moment, you also realized that this is another way to remove the hierarchy of the English.
Yes.
We're not translating the English title into these other languages. We are creating 3 equal titles.
Which you could have
That
done.
was like a huge. Was mind blowing to me.
You could have absolutely translated that, and those of us that are used to the English power and colonizing power, we've been like, all right, moving on with the title. You could have absolutely translated that with Google Translate, and no one would have, we all would have cared, but no one would have done anything about it. So the fact that you didn't do that, it's the powerful piece. It's not where we landed, honestly. It's the journey there. You could have absolutely translated, and you didn't, and that's what matters, right?
And to me, it was that we were all there on an equal level, and we were learning from you.
Mm-hmm.
There was no, again, like you have to remove that hierarchy of the police and the visitors or the employees and the other, just no, we're all here together to learn. I also am a sometimes classroom teacher, which is why I would like to make sure it's not just you. Cesar and Nitsa, do you have kind of a favorite moment from the council meetings or something that you really remember being important to how you felt about the process?
I enjoyed the furniture, making the furniture, and just the different woods and the different seating and the different cushions. I didn't know all of what it took to just make a bench. But the fact that we took so much time to make the seat comfortable for visitors, I thought was extremely important, because you want people to come and stay. It's the same way when you invite people into your house. You don't have nasty, hard furniture. You have nice, comfy, things so people can stay. So I thought it was really important, and just the process, picking out foams and sitting on different levels of foams was interesting.
Yeah. Cesar?
Yeah, for me, I was surprised, totally surprised of how efficient it was to do this by Zoom. Like, I couldn't believe that you could do that through the screen, and not like now, like we can get together and being able to agree on things and take decisions, and later on to see that really what people was saying there, like all this diversity showing up, and seeing that some of those ideas really materialize, and understanding that you guys listen to the people. I really enjoyed that part, because I remember, especially on one of the meetings where you was leading on what we talked, and we supposed to come up with this idea, like in the same time we was playing with the clay, and that liberation that gives you to be with this media and just like relaxing, kind of like clear your brain and stuff. Like, I think it was so easy, at least for me, as an artist, like it was so easy to be able to express what I wanted to say. So I always gonna remember that part. That at the end of the day, it was a meeting, we got paid. but even I also end up doing a piece of art that otherwise I would never do, because I made the time to be in the meeting, but then I made the time to do this art place, and then later on you collect it, take it to the kiln, and I have a collection of pieces there. That's the part that I enjoy the most.
I moved my fingers. So, I guess, does anyone have an answer to how you felt when you walked into the new building? And what did you think about the exhibition? Did you have a sense of ownership?
I currently sit at the front desk, and for me, I have a 27-year-old, and I think of the Clay Studio as my other child. I am extremely happy when people want to take a tour of the building. So I just feel like a proud mom, and as if I gave birth to this building for some reason.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Well, this morning I was questioning myself, like how a person who started the Clay Studio, whenever they started,
1993.
1993.
So like how the founders of this, like when they create this, when they envision to have a place where you could have it to this media and got fellow friends doing the same thing with the same passion and visioning, like why don't we get together and create this bigger space? Like I can only imagine like people now walking in and because if I came in for the first time and I don't have really too much relationship until I started being in the council. But understanding the media and how much that means for me, I can only imagine. Because when I came in and I saw the colossal building, it's not easy to create this public space for the people. I came in and it was impressive, it was colossal, it was monumental, but it was so at the same time it was I felt like at home. I felt like well received and for especially all the people working here at this business, you guys take this to the extra mile to make people feel welcome. I feel great, but I also it's more like a question for the founder, for the people who started this. How do they feel about it? Because to imagine something like this, like in future,
Yeah.
and the future is today.
Yeah.
I would like to hear that.
Well, there's two of them here. It was 1974, so maybe when we're done with Melissa, we can ask them how they feel.
I don't know if Elizabeth is here, but when I first walked in, I think Elizabeth was the first person I saw, and the words out of my mouth were like, "That's my bench!" Because I had no idea there were so many thicknesses and densities, and we talked for hours about the density of foam. And we would sit there, and two of us would go behind you, or put the board behind you, like lean back and forward. Miss Ann, we were like, well, you know, some of us who are like, you know, a little bit bigger, we need it lower than that, higher than that. It was amazing. So it took a whole day to design that. Couple several days actually. You know, Tiny WPA guided us through the whole thing, which is amazing. And then to come and see it, it's like graduation. Like if you're a parent or graduation, like pomp and circumstances playing, and you're crying, like, oh my God, that's my bench. I don't think I noticed. No offense, Molly. I honestly did not notice the art. I was so into that bench, and I just sat there, and then I look up like, oh, we have strollers from the coolest thing. That's cool. Didn't know that. And I got up and I started looking up the bench. That was the immediate reaction, and then the longer reaction was the tour. I think I got mine from Lisa actually. Yeah, I got mine from Lisa. Every floor got better and better and better, and then you land here. And that's it, you're done. Like, okay, where do I sign up for my next party? And then while you're coming up, Nita's telling you, and I get to control the kiln with my phone. Those are the things that I guess as artists that mean something to you, it means nothing to me. But, you know, like I don't have to babysit the kiln, literally, those are the words. Because the app was so, from phone to that which to this, you know, it was amazing to come in and see it. And like Cesar said, like, holy crap, this is incredible. And that's just second to the people in here who are amazing. I even asked Anna, level with me. We had this conversation en español, by the way. Dime en serio. De verdad son tan, they're really that nice. And I asked you too. But it's been really that nice. And I think I started crying. And Nate said, goes, yeah, it is that nice to work at the studio. Like, oh, cool. So as long as you guys are happy, this place is gonna be here for a minute, so I'm cool with that. So thank you.
That makes me cry. That's the whole point.
Well, I know that we could just keep talking for an hour, but it's almost lunchtime. I wanted to just circle back, and such a nice moment to think about. Josie and I were talking about the intimate connections that we have built, and the fact that you all, Melissa was just saying, you got to know each other on the council. We got to know you. we're friends now. We're gonna keep working together. It's an honor, and although we love, I'll let you say it. You love bringing clay to many people.
Yes, yeah. It's such a joy to go to these big festivals and make clay accessible to so many people. But having this intimate relationships is really important, and also how it ripples out from here, right, to the greater community. And that's what I'm excited about moving forward.
Yeah. Thank you. So after we'll break for lunch, and then you can go talk to the founders, and we'll find out their answers to those questions. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.